Quick disclaimer before we jump in today. Our content is for informational and educational purposes only and is definitely not medical advice.
Right. Always got to get that out of the way first.
Exactly. But with that said, did you know top scientists measured significant progress, specifically kicking velocity jumping from 83.9 to 93.8 kilometers per hour in professional soccer players after they used EMS?
I mean, it is just an absolutely staggering statistic. Almost a 10-kilometer per hour increase on a single kick. That's wild.
There really is.
In pro sports, athletes spend years trying to squeeze out like a 1 or 2% improvement. So finding a sudden 12% gain in pure explosive power is practically unheard of.
Yeah, and that is exactly what we are digging into today. We're looking at how whole body electrostimulation, or WBEMS, can completely enhance soccer playing routines.
We have a really fascinating stack of research in front of us for this one.
We do. It's anchored by a peer-reviewed study from the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine, led by researchers at the German Sport University Cologne. And we're also pulling from a great summarizing blog post to help translate some of the denser data.
The German Sport University Cologne is, they're a total powerhouse for applied sports science. They aren't just looking at theory in a vacuum.
Right.
They're actually looking at how boots-on-the-ground athletes can survive and thrive in modern competition.
Which perfectly lines up with our mission for today. We want to unpack exactly how these elite players got stronger, faster, and kicked harder without adding heavy gym work.
Because that's the dream, right?
Exactly. And most importantly, we want to break down how you, the listener and soccer player, can understand this science to potentially level up your own routine.
Because let's face it, the modern game is just brutal on the body. It is a completely different beast than it was even 10 years ago.
Oh, 100%. Anyone playing today knows you're covering way more high-speed ground. You're constantly sprinting, sharply turning, and decelerating.
Yeah, and you're doing it for 90-plus minutes. We all know that visceral feeling in the 80th minute, right? Where your lungs are burning, but worse, your legs feel like they're filled with wet cement.
Oh man, the heavy legs. You want to get to the loose ball, but your muscles just won't fire fast enough.
Exactly. Now, traditional sports science says if you want to fix that, you need to hit the weight room. You need heavy squats and deadlifts to build explosive power.
But that creates a massive catch-22 during a competitive season.
It really does. You're already training on the pitch 6, maybe 7 times a week. You have tactical sessions, cardio, and then a highly physical match on the weekend.
So if you throw heavy barbell squats on top of that schedule, your central nervous system just gets completely fried.
Right. You dramatically increase the risk of tearing a hamstring or, blowing out a knee because you're continuously breaking down muscle tissue and never giving your body time to rebuild it.
And that is the exact modern soccer dilemma these German researchers were trying to solve. How do you build maximum explosive power in season without destroying the athlete?
So they recruited 22 professional field players from the German 4th Division. And just to give some context, these guys are incredibly fit.
Yeah, they're basically training every single day.
Exactly. The researchers split them into 2 groups. Half went into a whole-body EMS group, and half went into a control jump training group.
And both groups just continued their normal, highly demanding soccer training throughout the whole 14 weeks of the study, right?
Yep. The only difference was this one specific intervention they did twice a week.
Okay, and this intervention is where I think people are going to be really skeptical. Because the protocol sounds, well, almost too simple.
It does sound a bit crazy. So twice a week, the EMS group put on a vest and belt system targeting their upper and lower body muscles.
Like the chest, abs, glutes, and thighs.
Exactly. And while hooked up, they did 3 sets of 10 maximal squat jumps. Meanwhile, the control group did the exact same 30 jumps, but without the EMS.
Wait, let me jump in here. So they just did 30 squat jumps twice a week.
Yeah, that's literally it.
That takes what, maybe 12 minutes total? Even with the rest period?
That's about 12 minutes, yeah.
How could that tiny amount of work possibly make a difference for professional athletes? I mean, they already train every day. It sounds like a late-night infomercial gimmick.
It really sounds like a complete drop in the bucket compared to their sheer training volume. But the data they gathered tells a completely different story.
Well, let's unpack those explosive results then, because I need to see the numbers to believe this.
All right, let's look at raw strength first. Over the 14-week study, they measured 1 leg maximal strength on a leg press.
Okay.
The EMS group strength rose from 1.66 kilograms per kilogram of body weight to 1.99.
Wait, that's like a 16 to 22% increase in raw leg strength?
Exactly.
That's huge. If you're an 80-kilogram player, you just went from pressing about 132 kilos on one leg to almost 160.
In just 14 weeks. From 12 minutes of work twice a week.
That is wild.
And crucially, that static strength translated directly to functional speed on the pitch. The researchers timed their 5-meter dash, which dropped from 1.04 seconds to 1.01 seconds.
Now, to someone outside the sport, 3/100ths of a second sounds like nothing.
Right, it sounds tiny.
But in a 5-meter window, that is everything. That is the difference between getting a toe on the ball to keep possession or getting your ankle completely clattered by a defender.
Exactly. It's the margin of victory in modern soccer. Furthermore, their sprints involving rapid direction changes dropped from 3.25 to 3.07 seconds.
Wow, so they're getting faster and more agile.
Yep. And their vertical squat jumps increased from 35.9 centimeters to 38.8. You're seeing improvements across every single metric of explosive agility.
Which brings us back to that terrifying stat from the beginning. Kicking velocity on a one-step shot went from 83.9 to 93.8 kilometers per hour.
It's just a massive jump. For
Yeah.
a goalkeeper, a ball coming in 10 kilometers an hour faster is an absolute nightmare.
Oh, totally. The reaction time shrinks to almost zero. It's like watching a car drive down a residential street and suddenly it's moving at highway speeds.
And the most important piece of context for all of these numbers is the control group.
Right, the guys doing the exact same physical jumps without the vest.
Yes, they showed absolutely no meaningful gains. Their strength, speed, vertical jump, and kicking velocity basically flatlined across the whole 14 weeks.
Okay, so it's like two drivers taking the exact same car around the exact same track. But the EMS group had a turbocharger bolted onto their engine.
I really like that framing.
Yeah.
The external physical movement was identical, but the internal stimulus was magnified exponentially.
And the beauty of that turbocharger is that it didn't add any extra physical wear and tear from heavy weights.
Exactly.
Okay, the numbers are undeniable, but this raises a huge question. How does an electrical current from a vest turn into a harder soccer kick? What is actually happening under the hood here?
To understand the biology, we have to look closely at the specific electrical settings the researchers used. They didn't just turn on a random current.
So what did they use?
They used an 80 hertz biphasic rectangular wave current.
Okay. You might need to break that down for me. 80 hertz biphasic rectangular what?
I know, it sounds like something out of a physics textbook. But think of a standard electrical wave, like a sine wave, which gently rolls up to a peak and rolls back down.
Like a smooth curve.
Right. A rectangular wave isn't a gentle roll. It is a harsh light switch. Bam! It turns on instantly at full intensity, holds the muscle contraction, and then bam! It turns off completely.
Oh, wow. So there's no buildup. It just jolts the muscle instantly.
Exactly. It is incredibly efficient at forcefully stimulating a muscle fiber. And the 80 hertz part just means it's sending 80 of those pulses every single second.
That sounds intense.
It is. During the workout, the current was active for 4 seconds, which perfectly timed with the player performing the explosive jump, and then it shut off for 10 seconds while they recovered.
And I'm guessing this wasn't just a gentle spa-like tingling sensation, right?
Not at all. The study used the Borg scale to measure perceived exertion. They pushed the players to slowly dial up the intensity until it was very high, hovering around 80 to 90% of their max tolerance.
Which is basically right on the edge of not being able to physically move.
Pretty much. They had to dial it back just barely enough so the player could still coordinate a clean jump without their legs completely locking up.
That is intense work, and to prove just how intensely those muscles were firing, the researchers drew blood from the players, right?
Yes, they were looking specifically at a biomarker called creatine kinase, or CK.
So, if I understand correctly, CK is an enzyme that lives inside your muscle cells, but when those cells experience high stress or damage, that enzyme leaks out into the bloodstream.
That is a great way to put it. It's basically a chemical distress signal that sports scientists use to measure muscle fatigue.
And what did they find in the EMS group?
Their CK levels spiked massively 24 hours after those 12-minute sessions. It proved that the muscle fibers were sustaining an incredibly high amount of biological stress.
Far more stress than the control group was getting from just jumping alone.
Right. But here's the twist that really blew my mind. They also tested the players' blood for IGF-1, which is a key growth hormone, and they meticulously tracked everyone's overall body weight.
And let me guess, no change.
Exactly. Both the growth hormone and the body weight stayed completely flat. There was no increase in mass whatsoever.
Which points to the most fascinating biological insight of this entire study. The players got drastically stronger and faster without bulking up.
Zero hypertrophy.
Wait, if the physical muscle fibers didn't get any bigger, how on earth did they press 20% more weight and kick the ball 10 kilometers an hour faster?
Because the adaptations weren't muscular, they were neural.
Neural, like in the brain.
Yes. To understand this, you have to look at how your brain naturally recruits muscle fibers. It's highly efficient, so it usually recruits your slow-twitch, fatigue-resistant fibers first.
Right, for endurance.
Exactly. It only calls on the large, explosive type 2 fast-twitch fibers if it encounters extreme resistance, like trying to squat a massive barbell.
Because those fast twitch fibers are biologically expensive to use, so your brain hoards them.
You got it. It keeps them in reserve.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole body EMS completely bypasses that natural gradual recruitment pattern.
Oh, I see. The high-frequency electrical current forces your nervous system to fully activate those large type 2 muscle fibers instantly.
Right from the start of the jump, even without a heavy barbell on your back, you are basically training the brain's software rather than upgrading the body's hardware.
You are forcing the nervous system to learn how to fire more efficiently, recruiting a massive amount of fibers simultaneously.
You are rewiring the neuromuscular connection.
That is incredible. But I have to push back on one thing here.
Go for it.
If those CK levels, those chemical distress signals, are spiking that high and the muscles are experiencing that much biological stress from the electricity, isn't there a massive risk of overtraining?
It's a very valid concern.
Because if you are a soccer player, you still have to step onto the pitch for a 90-minute championship match on Saturday. You absolutely cannot go into a game with fried legs.
The researchers were highly aware of that risk. It is exactly why the timing and dosage of this protocol were so carefully mapped out.
So how did they schedule it?
They explicitly scheduled the 12-minute EMS sessions on Mondays and Thursdays.
Giving a buffer.
A very specific buffer. By doing the second session on Thursday, they ensured a full 48-hour recovery window before the typical Saturday match.
Okay, that makes sense. So the CK levels would spike 24 hours post-workout, peaking on Tuesday and Friday.
Right, but by game day on Saturday, the chemical markers had cleared and the neuromuscular system had recovered.
It is all about the dosage and the timing. You can have the best tool in the world, but if you use it on the wrong day, you ruin the athlete.
Exactly. The study even noted that during the first few weeks, the perceived stress load on the players was very high. They were definitely feeling it.
But their bodies adapted over time.
Yes. Though if they had run this protocol on a Friday afternoon, their performance on Saturday would have undoubtedly tanked.
Which actually transitions perfectly into the practical application. For the listener out there, the soccer player, trying to integrate this kind of technology, what are the actual takeaways for your own routine?
Because it's clear you can't just slap some electrodes on your legs on a Friday night and expect to blast the ball like a pro on Saturday morning.
Definitely not. So what's the first takeaway?
The single biggest takeaway from the data is understanding the timeline of transfer, how long it takes for the software update to actually load into your gameplay.
Right. The study revealed a highly significant delay in how these adaptations show up on the pitch.
Yes. When they tested the players at the halfway point at week 7, they saw huge improvements in raw leg strength on the leg press and in the short 5-meter dash.
But the jumping height and the kicking velocity, those metrics barely moved at week 7.
Exactly. It wasn't until the final test at week 14 that the kicking speed saw that massive 10-kilometer-per-hour jump.
Why does a sprint improve in 7 weeks, but a kick takes 14?
It comes down to the complexity of the motor skills involved. Pushing a leg press away from your body is a very simple, linear, one-dimensional movement.
And a short 5-meter dash is mostly just raw forward propulsion.
Right, so the new neural strengths gained from the EMS translated to those simple movements very quickly. But a soccer kick is an immensely complex biomechanical chain.
It's the plant foot, the hip rotation, the core stabilizing, the knee snapping, the ankle locking.
It requires exquisite timing and coordination.
Yeah.
Your brain suddenly has access to all this new fast-twitch muscle power, but it essentially has to figure out how to sequence it.
Going back to your car analogy, you bolted a turbocharger into the engine, but the driver still needs time to learn how to handle a car around a tight corner without spinning out.
That is a perfect way to look at it. It takes weeks of physical repetition on the pitch for the brain to learn how to seamlessly weave that new raw power into a complex, highly coordinated movement like a strike.
So if you try this, patience is mandatory. The pure neural strength takes time to translate into soccer technique.
Consistency over a full macrocycle is key. You really have to stick with it.
And there is another highly actionable takeaway from this study too, right? About pad placement.
Yes. When players think about explosive leg power, they almost exclusively focus on the thighs, the quads, and the hamstrings.
But the study heavily highlighted the importance of targeting the calves, specifically the triceps surae muscle group.
Which makes so much sense when you visualize a game. Soccer is rarely just running in a straight line.
Right, you are constantly dropping your shoulder, reacting to a defender, cutting sideways, and exploding off the ball of your foot.
And the researchers found a direct, statistically significant correlation between the strength gains in those calf muscles and the improvements in reactive strength.
Things like drop jumps and multi-directional sprinting agility.
Exactly. If you are only strapping pads to your large thigh muscles, you're neglecting the very end of the kinetic chain. The calf and the foot are what actually transfer all that force into the ground.
So stimulating the calves alongside the thighs really does seem to be the secret sauce for that elite level agility.
It really is.
This whole deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. To think that just 12 minutes of targeted electrical stimulation paired with a simple dynamic movement like a squat jump can completely bypass the need for heavy weights.
It saves the joints, reduces the deep muscle fatigue that ruins your weekend match, and somehow still delivers better explosive results.
By entirely focusing on how the brain talks to the muscle, rather than just mechanically stressing the muscle itself.
Which leaves us with a really provocative thought to ponder, I think.
Oh, absolutely. If we can use 12 minutes of electricity to literally rewrite the nervous system for explosive power, if we can train the software to unlock hardware we already have, what other athletic plateaus are we currently stuck on just because we're approaching them wrong?
It's a huge question. If we stop viewing human performance solely as a mechanical problem of building bigger muscles and start viewing it as a neural challenge, the possibilities for athlete longevity and skill development are wide open.
It really challenges the traditional foundations of strength and conditioning.
It absolutely does. It makes you rethink everything.
Well, for you listening, if you want to keep exploring the absolute cutting edge of health and athletic performance and learn how to train smarter instead of just harder, please follow the Health Research Digest page on Facebook for more health research papers that we reveal.
It's a great resource for this kind of science.
We are constantly digging into the research that can genuinely transform your routine. Keep questioning the old methods, keep exploring the data, and keep pushing your limits. See you on the next deep dive.